Welcome to my podcast, Senior to Seniors, where I dive into the stories of seniors, explore their unique experiences, discuss the real issues facing seniors today, and introduce you to those assisting seniors in their senior journey. I have the privilege to talk with some of the most interesting people in the world impacting the senior community today. And today it is my pleasure to bring to you Daniel C. Rogers. And just let me give you a short introduction. Welcome, Daniel, first of all,
Thank
into
you.
Daniel. And so let me read from this. After a successful 20-year career in the tech industry, Daniel achieved financial independence and retired early to pursue his passion for helping others. Driven by a desire to give back, Daniel wrote Escape the Clock to provide a clear roadmap for anyone seeking financial freedom. Today, he continues to empower individuals by volunteer teaching financial literacy in Washington State, a beautiful place, providing free one on one financial coaching, hosting the Escape the Clock podcast, and continuing to write. His work focuses on demystifying personal finance and helping people achieve plans to live life on their own terms. So, once again, Daniel, I hope that was a proper introduction. I'm so glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
So, of course, the first question is going to be, you wrote the book, and I think one of the important parts of your book is in the subtitle that I don't want to escape here. Of course, Escape the Clock is your title, but the subtitle is Your Financial Guide for Financial Freedom and Early Retirement. And I think that's really key to what your book is about. So, how did it come about? Why did you write the book? And kind of tell us, how did it happen?
Yeah, it was something that happened a bit naturally. When I was younger, I was the first in my family to go to university. We was in a poverty situation. My dad was doing the best he could to get by, and my family was, really just struggling though. And
Mhm.
I was kind of pretty driven kid. I wanted to try to, do well at school. I actually borrowed money so I could go to university. There was no plan to go to university. And
Yeah.
so I remember going and trying to figure out how would I be able to make enough income to pay off these loans. And this is back in the day, right? Like the internet was very young and everything. So dial up modems and all that. And you dial up AOL and you do a search. And it was like, oh, this computer science thing is picking up. Maybe the salaries look pretty good there. And I didn't have any strong aptitude for math or anything, but I said,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to do this one. And I remember studying that and stretching myself. But when I graduated, I ended up with more than $100,000 left of school loans. And I had been working while I was in school. So, it was really like pick up yourself up by the bootstraps, lean in,
Sure.
work very hard. And even with all that, it was just terrifying. I got married right out of college. And, we're young and I'm now at a career learning how to do what I was trained to do, but just riddled with debt and those paychecks, I didn't know anything what it was doing. I remember at my job going through elections and like it's like, okay, do you want to contribute a match to a 401k? I didn't know what a 401k was.
Hmm.
All I
Hmm.
knew is that's money disappearing from my paycheck. I
Hmm.
remember looking at all of these withdrawals, these deductions, the taxes, and just feeling, uh, why? What is this line item? Why is my money disappearing? How am I ever going to get ahead? And it really, I think, woke me up to the point that I have to organize something. I have to come up with a plan. And I continue to update that plan. My wife was very supportive of what we were doing. We ended up having two kids. We ended up relocating to an expensive state. But even with all those life events of buying a home and, car repairs and all that stuff, I got really good at the skill of having a goal, making a plan, making progress, and educating myself through on how to get control of what this thing is and how to do it. And after 20 years of that, I that skill got so good. Tech companies started hiring me just to do it for them. I was organizing programs for them, and they
Hmm.
they were getting a lot out of that. And I realized anyone can do this. Any complex task can be broken down into simple to follow steps. And when you do that, anyone can accomplish anything as long as you have some time and you have some discipline, you can do it. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to help others do the same thing I did.
Boy, it doesn't sound that you would have ever been able to be in a position in your mid 40s is when you retired,
Yeah,
Daniel.
43. Yep.
43 years old, so very young in your 40s, that you would have been able to retire at that age just based on the debt, on where you came from, how you came, entering a field that you really knew nothing about, but it looked like a good opportunity. And so
Yep.
why not? There's nothing else I want to do. But it almost seems incomparable, just unbelievable that it would have happened. But one of the things I picked from your book was that you referred to, I believe, a number of times the SMART acronym.
Mm.
Specific goals, measurable goals. Um, Tell us about the SMART acronym, if you can, Daniel, and how you applied it in your structured plan to be able to retire at 43 years old.
Yeah, the dry parts of the book is the program management parts, I think. The rest of it I tried to make fun and easy for anyone of
Uh-huh.
any age to get through it. But yeah, SMART is it means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
basically a program management technique so that you know how well you're doing. So when you set a goal for yourself, that you want to make sure it's something that you know where you stand and that you're actually making progress for. Because if you don't, when you try to employ a strategy or a trick to get there, you won't know, is it working or not. And if
Yes.
you know how to measure it, then you can take a different approach. And so that's one of the keys to success. And this is why how I know anyone can be successful, because when you set smart goals for yourself, you can have as many as you want, by the way. It doesn't have to be some big number like a net worth. If you know the FIRE movement, the financial independence retire early, they have this idea that you're going to save 25 times your cost of living. Well, that's one big smart goal, is really what that is. In my book, I teach you how to take the more nuanced approach to life, right? If you want early retirement, which you don't have to, well, you're going to have a smart goal in non-retirement accounts, like a brokerage account, save high yield savings accounts, that kind of thing. But you might have another smart goal based on your retirement accounts and another smart goal based on transitions. And there's all, you can have as many as you need. The point is that there are things that you can attain. They're relevant to some period of your life. Some light up and activate at different times. They're specific to what your overarching goal is. And they're just things that they should be empowering. You shouldn't feel shut down by these goals. You should know that you're actually able to celebrate a milestone because you were able to use them to get to where you want to be.
So, how many people do you know that actually, I've been in a real estate business for 33 years, and part of where uh, the real estate business got me was owning my own company in Bend, Oregon, owning my own franchise, managing, teaching, and coaching 30 agents in that company. And of course, I always applied the SMART goals. I mean, it was the basis of everything. But I found that a high percentage of those people that I coached, taught, uh, recommended, and would recommend things to, that they just could not get through the SMART goals process, or they failed to do it. What can I do? What can anyone do to inspire people to adapt those SMART goals like you have? Obviously, it's worked for you, right? And it worked for me. Uh, However, I don't know that I was as dedicated to the outcome of those SMART goals as you might have been. And I think the dedication and seeing it through is part of it. So, what recommendations might you have for somebody to use the SMART goals, to stick through to the SMART goals, and to use them effectively?
It's a really good question. I think one, everyone has goals, right? We all
Mm-hmm.
have desires and goals in life. And if they're smart goals or not, I think that's based on the aspect of how well you fleshed it out. And what I'm getting at there is if you have a goal at all, it's probably already specific to your needs. So it's already by default a bit of a SMART goal. Is it attainable though? That might take a little bit more levity. You may have to really ask yourself, have I really, am I being honest with myself? Is this something I can accomplish or not? If you don't have the income for what you're trying for like the style of living that you'd like to have, well, that's not to say that it's not attainable, but it might not be attainable based on how you're currently, your current situation. You might have to make some bigger changes to your situation. The relevancy aspect to it is based on where you are in your life. Like some goals are going to be more relevant when you are working rather than when you're retired. Or, it just depends on where you are in life. So I think for me, it's more of about being willing to put your head down and think through. It's more the thought exercise, right? And the SMART goals are a way to capture your thoughts in a structured way. And the reason I think that's important for two reasons. One is when you do that, you've ensured that you have something measurable. And again, measuring it means you know how far off I am and you can communicate. I know it's going to take me X number of years or months or weeks or days to get to where I want to be. The other thing, though, is you're packaging it in a way that someone else can understand. And a lot of what my book is doing is it's helping you build a plan that's not just actionable, but it's something that's so actionable and easy to understand that you could put it in front of your loved one, your child, financial advisor, and it's going to incite really productive dialogue. So you're going to get so much more mileage out of collaborating on having a personalized plan where you've been able to structure your needs, your wants, your desires, and where you stand in a way that, let's be honest, we're most biased on our own success. And by doing that, those conversations are going to bring people onto your side. They're going to help, make sure you're more efficient. When you talk to a financial advisor about what you need, they're not going to assume you don't know anything. Clearly, you have a plan already. They can help you find strategies that'll really help you get forward and catalyze you. That's really what I'm thinking about. It's about the taking these goals you have and saying, okay, how do I take every aspect of that acronym and I structure it in a way that makes it easy for someone else to understand and I can see where I am with it.
Yeah. Well, I heard long ago that most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their finances, right?
Yeah.
And I can speak to that, especially early in my life, where I can remember, as a matter of fact, I can remember charting out a vacation when I lived in Iowa to the Pacific Northwest. And I remember doing the whole thing, going to I think the Skagit River all in Washington is
Yep.
Skagit.
That's schedule. Yep.
Yeah, doing a level five, a level 5 whatever in the falls or creeks or rivers or whatever the heck it was. But yeah, I think part of this is just the discipline to be able to do it. So, is it? I work mostly as my business has transitioned from just general real estate owning, teaching to serving seniors because I'm kind of one of them at this point, right? And so I see that there's a void for seniors. I mean, a lot of real estate agents will walk in and say, I can help you sell your home or buy a home. And they're looking at going A to B and collecting a check and moving on. My mission is more of helping um, provide the tools to seniors that they can use to better their life, to get from A to B in a different way. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you see your book and what you did, how it might be actionable now for seniors who obviously are beyond, like myself, retiring at 41 years old? But what is it? Is it ever too late to put into place the steps that you recommend in your book?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. The program management thing again is applicable to anything you want to accomplish in life. You can use those tools on if it's to sell your home or rent your home or build diversify your portfolio with real estate. Like these are goals that you can build a plan around and you can get there. So the demographic, I talk about this in the first chapter of the book actually. It ranges from anyone who's just starting out to anyone
Okay.
who's been fully retired. And I know that's almost an impossible thing. My publisher even said that's a really wide audience to go for.
Sure.
But
Sure.
the truth is, we all go through a journey through life, right? And when there's phases to life, and before you have your pre-income years, you have your income earning years, and then you have potentially a bridge year if you're an early retiree. That's optional. But then you have your
Hmm.
retiree years, right? And
Hmm.
each of these times means, we have different opportunities. And depending on where you are, you're going to have different goals with your life. And it could be a legacy goal. You could be thinking, how can I make sure I have as much as possible to give to my grandchildren or my loved ones or my charity? That could be your goal. Or it could be, you know what? I wish I had saved a little bit more money. How can I stretch what I have? How can I grow what I have? You can absolutely do that.
Well, and
That's
a legacy goal doesn't have to even be financial,
it
right?
doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
right. Legacy goal can, I mean, and that I talk about that in the book too. This is not just a finance book. This is a life book because you can't talk about money without talking about the psychology of work, with the psychology of retirement, the psychology of living. And with the early retirement stuff, I really do focus heavily on the idea of purpose. You don't go into early retirement without a purpose in mind. You're
and
not
most
going.
and most do. I mean, most go not just early retirement, Daniel. Of course, I haven't been there like you, but
Huh?
in retirement period,
I
they
bet.
don't. There's and I see it all around me, where there's people. Not to be rude to people that live around me, but they're wandering almost with no sense of purpose. Um, really accomplishing, at least in my eyes, accomplishing very little when they could be accomplishing so much. Um, and of course, it's not my dream, it's not my goal, but they could be giving back, especially to charitable organizations, to those people that need people that would love having seniors in their life. But purpose is a big thing, isn't it?
And you can find it anytime. It's never like there's a point where you can't find purpose, right? And I actually talk about in the last chapter of the book
Yes, you do.
how to go through an exercise of trying to identify finding purpose because it's so important. Now, if you've identified it before a transition, it'll make that transition more comfortable. But if you've
Hmm.
already made a transition and you're feeling, rudderless, it's not too late to think about what more might I do to feel engaged and it's about thriving, right? You want to feel like you're thriving financially, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is that, it is that defines you as your happiness or your utility, and that's all really, really important. So I touch on it's not just tax optimizations, that's in the book, but there's also things about how to think about legacy, how to think about activity. Like, and I think one thing, I truly believe this, every single one of us, our value is not based on how much money we've made or can make. It's based on the utility of us as individuals because we're all unique. We have skills, and those skills have value, and the value can be monetized. Absolutely.
Hmm.
In early retirement,
Hmm.
I'm learning podcasting, I'm learning new things. It's fun and it's great. And some of it can be monetized, and I might do that, I might not. But the
Hmm.
skills have value to others, and you can give those skills to others. You can volunteer, you can connect, you can do stuff. So every single person has skills, every single person, and you can always build new ones. And the beautiful thing about being retired is your most valuable resource in life is time, and you have it. You have
Yeah,
the most valuable resource, and imagine what you can do with that currency.
yeah, and I know with my life, about in my 30s, made the decision that time time is the most important thing I have. And I had an experience with my daughter, who's now 42 years old, but at that time she was maybe in her 20s, as I recall. But we were watching movies, videotapes of when she was young, and there was one of her at a dance recital. And as we're watching it as a family, and I'm watching it, I said, with the family, we're all sitting around and laughing and kind of making fun of her for her little outfit that she was wearing and so forth. I said, I don't remember that recital. And she said, well, Dad, that's because you weren't there. I
Uh,
said, what do you mean I wasn't there? She says, well, you weren't ever there. And it's not that I'm angry about it. I just know, and I knew that you couldn't be because you were working. You had a job, you were managing people, and it was difficult for you. And I decided at that moment, I don't ever want to hear that again.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um, you know,
you were doing the best you could, and at the same time, you know, not everyone can appreciate the sacrifices sometimes of that. I think everyone does that mean well, but I can tell you, like, I had met my goals. I could have retired earlier than I did, but something was holding me back and keeping me at work. And I realized, I was coming up with reasons to stay working, but yet my son was about to graduate high school. He was in his senior year. My daughter was a freshman. And I realized, and with the support of my spouse, actually, she was amazing. She really encouraged me. She's like, look, you worked hard for this. You earned this. You were fine. We'll be fine. You should do
uh,
it. And
uh,
I just got to enjoy that because my son graduated just this week. And one of the
Congratulations.
things he did was he got to go in cap and gown to the elementary school that he attended and walk down the hallway with all the kindergarten through fifth grade kids lined in the hallway. They had signs. They were kind of high-fiving the high schoolers going off and everything. And I got to be there. That was something I never would have been able to do. I
Right.
would absolutely not taken off work for that. And I'm
Yeah.
so happy I was there. It was amazing. And I'm like, I only got to do this because I took that leap.
Yeah. You took the lead. You worked with your SMART goals to be able to get to that place. As it turns out, Daniel, for my youngest, I was able to attend every single football game he ever played, both in middle school, high school, and college. And he, by the way, went to Pacific Lutheran University, which is, right up in the Seattle area. But I I attended every game, and it's because I worked my life around that, not as well as I could have. Maybe not as well as I could have if I would have had a book to help me, like your book might have helped me get there. One question I have is, I'm guessing some people will look at this interview and think, okay, he retired in his early 40s. He must have had, and you've cleared this up, but just so it doesn't be is missed, that you didn't inherit all kinds of money. Okay. So there wasn't this, great big fund waiting for you somewhere. Um, the kind of job did you have? Some people might think, well, he must have had a job where he earned a couple hundred, $300,000 a year, and that's the only way he could have gotten to that place. Not to pry, but it's. I'm curious. You had to have obviously income to be able to support these goals that you put in place. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I think that's honestly one of the best questions you could ask about this. Like, you should challenge anyone who comes and says they can just do this thing. You're done, right? You should
Yeah.
absolutely be skeptical of it. Yeah, no inheritance. I didn't write some big app or sell some book in advance that made me millions. I didn't get a lotto ticket. Nothing like that. I just, followed discipline and a plan, and I made lots of mistakes. And so the book is capturing and helping others avoid some of the mistakes I made that slowed me down, actually. I did okay, I think, salary wise. I had to do things, and I cover this in the book. You have to make moves to get to the where I eventually got to. I hit my highest earning years towards the end. So I was
Hmm.
doing pretty
Hmm.
well. I was, a couple 100,000, I was in the
Hmm.
200,000 range. That was good. We
Hmm.
were definitely feeling blessed for that. But
Hmm.
the truth was, I was having conversations with people making six, $800,000 a year who were nowhere close. They were older than me, and they were nowhere close to the retirement. They were
Yeah.
blown away that I was making so little money compared to them, and that I was able to make this leap. And the truth was, I had taken steps in my plan to ensure that my cost of living was manageable and understood. They did not know what their cost of living was. They had basically handed full management of their finances off to somebody who was taking 2 to 3% of their net worth every year
Sure.
and telling them they would do better for them than they could do for themselves, which I know is not true. We will all be more biased to do better for ourselves than someone can do for us. There's no magic tool here. There's no guaranteed returns. A little bit of education and some discipline, you can do it. So really, it came down to me mostly avoiding things like debt, being able to understand how to afford the big purchases in life, knowing how to do a budget, and being able to, um, you know, yes, get the salary up, but I had to like make sacrifices. I had to make to, move to different companies, not stay at a company for too long. The truth is, if you stay at a company too long, you will not make as much salary than if you're
Hmm.
willing to make a move, or at least
Hmm.
say that you're interested in making a move. You have to be able to kind of find ways to get your income up or find secondary or alternative income sources. So I was building passive income while I was also trying to push up my primary income. And that passive income has been a big source of my success because
Sure.
without a paycheck, I still have cash flow coming in,
Yeah.
and that cash flow is providing me psychological safety. Like I feel comfortable knowing I have still money coming in. I'm not just withdrawing my account down to nothing and
Yeah.
worried I might have to go back to work. So the book covers that. Like, how do you do all the different pieces you need? Because that was what those people making $800,000 a year was missing. They were on autopilot for the most part. They didn't have a plan at all, to be honest.
Yeah. And so many people, I think now, depending on what their salary is, what they earn, they're just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah.
And so, I think uh, people who may not retire in their early 40s, but they can plan their life so they can retire.
Yeah.
And they can retire because they build a plan and they can have a retirement that is something worth retiring to and not just retiring to die, right? Because I think I see it. So many people just, it's kind of like they've given up. They're here. They're going to coast if they can, hope they got enough money to get by. And who knows? One of my biggest regrets, Daniel, is planning for effectively for healthcare in my future. Do you touch on that in your book at all?
I do. I do. Healthcare is maybe arguably one of the most important pieces. I talk about mitigation a lot in the book. As a program manager, I think about risks. So,
Okay.
I mentioned fire movement earlier. It's got a lot of popularity, but one of the big criticisms with it is it oversimplifies a lot of things. It doesn't teach you about the nuance of what about when healthcare costs go up, or what if Social Security were taking away. I try to touch on all that in the book because the truth is, if you think about these things as risks that need to be mitigated, then you can build into your plan things to do as contingencies. And healthcare is one of those things that you have to build into your plan. You need
Yeah.
to think about what are my eligibilities based on my age. You have to think about what my state offers versus like federal options versus other options. And I lay a lot of those options out because depending on who you are or your needs is going to be different. But the truth is, healthcare is one of the most difficult things in the United States to solve. There is no easy answer for this one, and you should probably expect it to be one of those gunks that slow down your plan the most. But like anything else, it's a hill that can be overcome, but you might just need to put a little bit more into your savings goal to make sure you're covered. Or HSA is usually the right way
Yeah.
to go if you can go that route.
I I don't remember you specifically using the term gunk in your
It's in my head. Yeah, I don't know if I wrote that one.
I like the word and it fits because it is. It's this big glob of
Yeah.
gunk, that we talk a little bit, if you would, just a little bit more for those who haven't read your book. Hopefully they'll go out and get your book. And I just want to remind everybody, I don't want you to go to Amazon right now. Wait until we're done. But the book is called Escape the Clock. And again, the subtitle is something that I keyed in on called Your Financial Guide for Financial Freedom and Early Retirement. And it's available on Amazon. So people can go there to grab your book. For those who haven't or may not, they're lost. But will you talk a little bit more about the fire movement?
Yeah.
Uh, where can I find out more about the fire movement? I have never heard of it before until your book.
Yeah, yeah, it's nothing I'm introducing or inventing.
Right.
It's actually, been around for decades now. It just started to get really popular in the early 2000s as people were starting to feel really burned out with work. And so people were like, well, do I really have to wait to 65, 67 to retire? Should there be an option to retire early? And so the financial independence retire early movement really leaned into this Trinity study that had happened, which was the study that happened in the 90s, which looked at rates of returns for the stock and the bond market and realized that, hey, if you save 25 times your cost of living, your annual cost, the annual amount you spend per year, that you could survive 30 years withdrawing 4%. And so they call that the 4% rule. Now there's some problems with this study. It happened in the 90s. It didn't account for changing healthcare costs. 4%, it does have to be adjusted with inflation. So it's like
Mhm.
4% the first year, then it might be 4.5% the next year. There are some better strategies. I not This is not a fire book, just to be clear. I
Okay.
present fire and teach fire in the book as one of many different options because the strategies you pick are trying to help you get to your SMART goal. If fire is working for you, that's great, and it's actually kind of an easy one to use. To be honest, it's a little overly simplified, but if I actually provide other options besides fire as well that you can kind of kick over to try if that one is not being as effective for you. And some people believe in this movement and it's really working for them. It leans heavily in the idea of a brokerage account using stock investments because it is about retiring early. It's about saying you can't touch your IRA, you can't touch your 403b or 401k. So you have to have that money grown somewhere else. That's kind of the
Hmm.
premise of it. Um, my book is not a retire early book. It talks about early retirement. It actually can be for the person who wants to retire at 65. I just make sure I cover the retire early stuff because it's just so many people want the option, and that's what just happened. What I did.
So I'm guessing you read a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And you'd have to. Who did you reach to or lean on or maybe study in putting together your goals? For instance, I have been part in the real estate part of my business in suggesting the Dave Ramsey method of reducing debt
Mm.
and covering. Who did you look to for inspiration, for ideas? Probably a lot of people, but anybody in particular?
I mean, look, I've read so many finance and retirement books. I like Millionaire Next Door and Smart Investing. I'm trying to remember the name. What is the name of the one that did introduced the fire movement? It'll come to me in a second. I know it. Um, what's that? I think it was Your Money or Your Life,
Okay.
um, uh, by Vicki Robin.
Okay.
Uh, so that was a really pinnacle book back in the day. Like so many of these things, they're all great. Honestly, I've learned so
Hmm.
much about investing and like retirement accounts. The thing though is like every one of these books, as good as they are, they're not comprehensive. They
Yeah.
teach like one philosophy or one idea
Yeah.
really, really well. And I love them and I've read them and I recommend some of them. But my goal is to write a book I could hand my kid, my 18-year-old, and say, this is it. This is the book I wish someone had handed me. This is the one that will tell you everything you need to know. And that's what I wanted. That's why I felt it was important to have a print copy because I wanted people to be able to hand it to their grandchild or their nephew or whatever and say, I'm handing you this book because I want you to know I care about you, that financial, money is okay to talk about, and that
Yes.
this is something I know will be a stress in your life, and I want you to know you can talk to me about it. So I knew that was important to put that into a book like this that wasn't just like one strategy or one philosophy.
Yeah. So you have other goals, long-term goals. You're young enough that long-term goals are a reality for you and so forth. Where do you plan, or where do you envision taking this book and to what you're teaching? For instance, I see an application for high school,
Mm,
for college courses. I mean, it's not money isn't taught in schools how to budget, right? I know
yeah.
my wife has been in just retired from the banking industry after 28 years or something. And one of the things she taught as part of her bank was going into high schools and teaching back in the day,
Yeah.
kids how to balance a checkbook. I mean,
Yeah.
even,
Love that.
that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
Where do you see, if you do see, taking this book, or what other plans do you have for your future in your life? How are you going to contribute going
Well,
forward?
I love teaching. I find it to be my something that fulfills me personally. I think it's a great purpose to have. Right now, I'm teaching high school through a nonprofit, Financial Beginnings, in my state, where I'm going and I'm teaching middle school, high schoolers these topics. Just a free nonprofit thing, and I love that. And if this was, I think I improved it to be a part of a curriculum in two different college universities. So that's cool that this book could be something
Inspired that?
kids are going to pick up because a teacher professor is talking about it. I love that. I think that's fantastic. I would love to teach it, because I do think this is so important and it is missing from the curriculum.
Hmm.
I was like waiting for my kids to have some kind of economics course in high school, and it just didn't happen, and I was really let down by that. So I'm like, okay, well, you're gonna hate me for this, but we're gonna start learning it at home. And investing is so important, yet a lot of people have a block with it. And when
Yes.
they ask, like, hey, investing, isn't that something rich people do? Like,
Hmm.
yeah, but don't you want to be rich too? It's like, well,
Hmm.
then you should be doing it. There's no barrier to do it. You can put $10 into a $10 stock. You can put $100 into a $100 stock. And it's just, you have to be willing to let it go. You have to let it sit and ride and do it smartly, because there are smart ways to invest. And that's how you will start to get ahead. That's how you will create momentum. That's how you will, like, create a more lucrative future for yourself. So, like, even with my son, who is very smart, financially minded now, because I've been bugging him with it. He didn't want to do investing. He just didn't want to try it. So I said, okay, fine. Well, I'm giving you this amount of money, and I'm going to set up your brokerage account with you, and I'm going to have you pick how you want to invest it. He went through it, and he's like, oh, that was not that hard. I don't know
Hmm.
why I didn't want to try this. And
Well,
now he comes to me, he's like, hey, guess what? That it's now worth this. Now worth this. And now he's actually starting to look at the tickers. He's starting to get the idea. And I'm not turning him into a Wall Street kid. I'm not turning him into, like, he's not a wolf
well,
of Wall Street. He's just someone who's starting to realize, like, hey, I have choices of what I need to do with the money I have. I should do the best thing I can based on my goal. And for
yeah.
that money, it's a longer term goal versus money he might put into a savings account.
See, and I think for a lot of young people like your son, it turns into a mental block, as you
Yeah.
mentioned. It's a mental block. I can't do this
Yeah.
uh, because I'm not like those people, actresses, actors. I'm not. I can't sports figures, right? I'm not like them, and so I can't do it. Um, and so, um, tell me, where are you going to go? Do you have another book planned? What's going on?
Yeah, this book ended up being 480 something pages. It ended up being, I was like, as I was writing, I'm like, wow, there's a lot to cover here, but it's not
Yeah.
everything. I did start writing follow up on advanced strategies. Like, for instance, when you build a good stock portfolio, the amount of ways you can generate income from stocks, there's actually a lot of great ways, but you have to do it. I have ways I've learned it and mastered it. I do it safely. And my thing is, I'm not a big risk taker. I'm just not. My thing, I'm more looking for the close to shore bet thing, right? And so I learned how to do things carefully, and that's what I'm trying to teach people. I don't want to go into a high school and tell a bunch of high school students, go, this is your get rich scheme. Here's how you're going to do that. Like, I never want to do that. I don't want people to buy a lotto ticket. I don't want people to do that. I want people to know you have X number of decisions. This is the type of returns. This is be informed to make the right decision based on your risk tolerance and your risk capacity, which is different depending on where you are in your life and what your goals are. So now I'm thinking I'm going to write a smaller follow up one on some of these more advanced things for that person who's either already escaped the clock or very close to doing it and is just looking for a little bit more of a boost, taking the capital they've built and turning it into more, that type of thing.
Well, you've written a powerful book. So how can they get more of you?
Yeah.
How can people either reach out to you, or I know you have a podcast. Is your podcast is called Escape the Clock?
Yep. Yep.
Right?
So the same things from the book. I'm just trying to get the information out so I can
And
break
they
the
can,
ideas apart week by week. It's every single week I have a new episodes. The one I just released this morning was about passive income, how to build passive income flow.
Okay. And so you do one-on-one coaching as
I
well,
do. I do.
correct, Daniel?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that fee-based? How do you do that? How,
No, anyone can sign up for it. I'll do at least one or two for free. Help you get going, help get your plan together. If you want in-depth stuff that might take hours, yeah, I do have a way to pay for that just because I only have so much time available. So I have to kind of be able to apply that appropriately. But yeah,
sure.
no, anyone can sign up for the consultation. My goal is just to help you get going with your plan because once you have a plan, you've set yourself apart. So you can go to escapetheclock.com. I wanted to make this very easy. Everything is there. You can find the all the different places, ways to get the book. There's actually multiple ways to get the book, the podcast. There's a YouTube series I built to help people use the free tool that I made. Because by the way, we didn't cover that, but when you go to a finance advisor, a lot of what you're paying them for is whatever tool they're using to manage your finances, and it's usually some fancy Excel sheet. And the truth is, anyone can do that themselves. But I understand there's a barrier with the time it takes to do that. So I took the one I made for me and I generalized it and I put it up for free. So you don't even have to read the book. You don't have to listen to my podcast. You don't have to do anything. But just if you need to get started, go to escapetheclock.com/planner, take the free tool at the very least. At least you
Yeah.
got something to get you going.
Okay. Well, that's great advice, and uh, reach out, get the book, everybody. It's well worth it, whether you were 20 or whether you're 70. I think there's something in there for everybody. Uh, Daniel, I want to thank you for being with me, joining me from the Pacific Northwest that I miss so much being here in Texas. But uh, this has been um, this has been great, and I wish you the best of luck. Hope we can talk again. And again, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
Have a great day, everybody.